Bitcoiners, I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? T-Dog Yogo, good morning, Bitcoiners. Going to be a great week. I think so, T-Dog. I think so. I'm really looking forward to this week. All of 2024 is going to be full of these fun weeks, I have a feeling. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning, Quentin. Hassan, good morning. Lightning Ven, good morning. Coffee is on. Still waiting on the sunrise tech. Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to give you a preview. It's running. It's running. Maximum sunrise tech. Bomatab, good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning, B for victory. Assalamu alaikum. Dem Houthis be tearing it up from parts bought from eBay. David versus Goliath. We're going to be talking about that this morning. Muslim Bitcoiner. We got that content here. We're talking about asymmetric warfare. Good morning, comrades. Good morning, comrades. Morning, Bitcoiners. Hope you're doing well, bud. Robert. Good morning. Here we go. Daniel. Good morning, Bitcoin enthusiasts. Huddle T. Washington mentioning that climate tech, operational. Money tech, operational. Media tech and the breakup, operational. I like it. We'll be confirming the sunrise and Bitcoin's running in just 1 second. We'll be acknowledging it. We'll be thanking Satoshi and our creator for all that we have. Happy Bitcoin morning from Chicagoland. We love Chicago. David, good morning. Great. Indeed, as you've heard from many people in the chat, the sunrise, we got no problems. It's up. It's happening, right? We're doing fine. Bitcoin is also running without any problems. Therefore, all that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new. I saved my last sip today. So that was what it was. All right, as you know, we love doing Moscow time. We love starting our day with the fakest news we can find, right? We love the fakest news we can find. I just wanted to tell one quick anecdote about this comrades thing because it reminded me when I was reading it. So one time I just gotten back from Cuba and I was there doing some stuff and I met an old friend from law school and we were having some drinks on my porch and we we're having a nice time and we were talking about this and that Cuba. But he had too much to drink, right? So the Cuba thing just came up while he just went like this and then vomited, right? He drank too much. So sorry to start your day with a vomit story, but the punchline was this, right? So we had just started talking about Cuba and he did it without really hesitating. He was like, excuse me. And then, right. And he goes, pardon me, the mere mention of communism. It's a pretty good one. So when I hear comrades, sometimes it triggers me. All right. Speaking of triggered, don't let this trigger you, okay? Because it's pretty funny. This comes from the UK, from the Telegraph. All right. Science, guys. We got Max Science here. Climate chiefs admitted net zero plan based on insufficient data, leading physicist says. Key committee only looked at a single year of data and making controversial green energy plans. So you know how it's all about trends? Like at least they normally go with trends, right? Like what happened over years that changed. This one just said, no. 1 year is good enough. 1 year's all the data we need, right? Climate science. And I wonder if they based the following government plan on that study. They might have. So I'm not ruling it out because this is back in England. English farmers to be paid up to £100,000 to retire. The scheme aims to free up land for new entrants as part of a post-Brexit shift in subsidy systems. Too good. We got more environmentally kind of stuff here. Hold on. I'm not done. Well, this one's good. Okay, if anyone out there is getting pregnant, right? But you also smoke, right? I got a news update. No big deal. Just go to vapes. Daily Mail telling us that vaping while pregnant is safe for both babies and mothers. It's true, guys. You can just vape. Doesn't matter if you're pregnant. The baby is fine. They love the vaping. Rule. Let me finish that. I wasn't even done because I forgot experts is even in the title here, right? So vaping while pregnant is safe for both babies and mothers. rule experts amid growing fears of dangers of e-cigarettes. Smoke up, guys. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's so good. It's so good. This one here is also funny, right? It requires a small punchline, right? Who calls for and it's the Tedros, the guy, Tedros. We got to listen to Tedros, right? Who calls for world pandemic treaty to prepare for deadly disease X? And of course, we know what disease X. It's the X app, right? And all of their plans, to deal with public health now, they're all censorship. That's what they got, right? Don't talk about it the way we said not to, right? So many experts. All right, now I got a couple of Canadian ones here, right? We love Canadian fake news. Canadian fake news has a real maple syrup sweetness to it. It's excellent, right? It's really unique. It's uniquely fake. This one's really good. I've actually hung out with the writer of this one before. Her name is Susan Delacourt. She's retarded. I knew her. She was always as dumb as she is now. She hasn't changed, right? So here's her headline, though. It's from the Toronto Star, all right? Mad at Justin Trudeau? Tuning him out? The Prime Minister says he hears you and he gets it. The Prime Minister tells Susan Delacour that he understands that there's a lot of people who are just rightly grumpy at the world right now. That's news. It's news. Hard-hitting journalism, right? The Toronto Star also wrote the following headline, but I have questions, right? So the headline is the following: half of Canadians concerned the U.S. is becoming an authoritarian state as 2024 election looms. New poll finds. So hold on here. They believe that they're saying half of Canadians are concerned the U.S. is becoming an authoritarian state. But if they'd have polled me, I'd have said yes, right? Yes, it is an authoritarian state. It is. It's currently now, right? So I'm a little confused about what they're actually publishing here at the Toronto Star, but they put a picture of Trump in it, so it makes sense, right? Makes sense. This one's good too. It's from CTV News in Canada. Trump jealous of Trudeau because he's younger and way better looking. That's a headline. That's a headline, guys. He's jealous because he's better looking. This one's good too. So Trump is in New Hampshire today for the primaries, which are tomorrow. You remember Iowa was last week. That's the order, right? That's what the Democrats have gotten rid of. The order for a long time now. I don't think it's from the beginning of the country, but it's been for a long time since the primary process was so important. The primary process in Iowa and New Hampshire, starting there, forces candidates into going to small town, rural America to campaign there and giving it a little more amplification, because otherwise you're going to ignore it. There's not a lot of votes there, right? So that's the reason why it was done. So here's the headline from Politico, right? So he's there on his second week. Trump's feral close to the New Hampshire primary. He's feral. Feral means he's traveling a lot, all right? Feral. He's feral. So good. So good. Do I have more Trump stuff here? Hold on. I think that's all my Trump stuff. Oh yeah, this is also this is also going on for the primary, right? It's Nikki Haley. So some people are questioning why Nikki Haley, she was broke, right? She was poor, and then all of a sudden she wasn't poor. And so this is an actual NPC headline from NPR, I think maybe from, I forgot to copy who published it. The font actually makes me think it's the New York Times. So, but here's no shit what they actually wrote, all right? So this comes, she gets criticized because she didn't have a lot of money, which some people think exposes her to blackmail and bribes, right? So that's the context, right? So here's what the New York Times, how they framed it, because it's nice. It's nice. How Nikki Haley's lean years led her into an ethical ticket. So here it. It's not that she got bribed. It's that she was poor, but she got bribed by the ethical people. Her ethical ticket. Okay. Her lean This is to try to wipe away the Boeing stuff, okay? That she got paid too much money from defense contractors. So it's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. I got another one here. Well, I don't want to do that. I'll save that for later. Some of these are also fake news, but I can add them to the theme and the story. So I'm just going to say they repeat them. The fakeness can repeat itself sometimes, but this one's unique. I got a unique fake one here. Okay. This comes from, so it's not a news source, but it's the United States Institute of Peace. It's one of the folks Mike Benz has warned us about. And it's one of the things that creates headlines. So this is just like a little up the colon from where the fake news really comes out. So it's a little deeper in the colon, right? It's not actually the exit point. But here's what they say. Okay. This is one of those special ones that I don't have to add anything. I'm going to try to read it without laughing, but it's pure Moscow time. It's pure Moscow time. Ready? The Taliban's successful opium ban is bad for Afghans and the world. The ban is not a counter-narcotics victory and will have negative economic and humanitarian consequences, potentially leading to a huge refugee crisis. So the Taliban are still the bad guys because they got rid of the opium. They're still the bad guys because the opium, they were successful. Now, I guess because of the fentanyl or something, maybe I can see their point. Maybe I shouldn't be laughing so much. But imagine framing it this way. The Taliban's successful opium ban is bad. It's bad. It's no good, guys. You don't want to do that, okay? If you have an opium plant in your area, right? Like an opium, like they're making too much opium, you don't want them to get rid of it, guys. It's great if they don't get rid of it, okay? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. This one's good too. We got some COVID stuff. This is from Huffington Post, okay? So long COVID study suggests immune system is responsible for the root of your persistent problems, right? So it's your immune system, guys. So if you have long COVID, it's not the vaccines. No way. No way. No way. It's your immune system, okay? It's your immune system. And finally, we get to our last one. And again, I don't want to overuse this concept of the world champion of fake news, of the world champion of Moscow time. I don't want to go too far with that, right? And every time I think I found it, I find another one, okay? But this one is, it's something else. It really is something else. And it comes from The Atlantic, all right? It comes from The Atlantic. And here's what they say. And Alex Soros retweeted it. That's how I know about it, all right? So here we go. The great normalization. Last year, the crime and inflation crisis largely evaporated. So did the leading theories about what caused them. So in case you were wondering, guys, both the crime and inflation are gone. The crisis have largely evaporated. All right? Great news, everyone. It's great news. It's gone. It's America's safe. And we have no more inflation trouble. The economy is just great. Okay. Now, some people are saying the picture that came along with the Atlantic article had a glass with a bullet hole in it, and then it had a series of what you might be confused that are US dollars, but are actually silver certificates. They're old US dollars in the right hand. And if you add the number of bills up, it's 47. So there's some people out there saying this was a sign, you know. But those people, right, who are out there saying Terra Bull, I read Terra Bull. I never really realized what her name was. Terra Bull, not terrible. Terra Bull. Terra Bull 808, as in Bull Bitcoin. And Terra as in Tara. So now she's out there saying, it's just for fun, right? She's saying, is there a hidden message by Soros with this thing? A bullet hole through a window in 47 seems like an open threat. In the comments, some people say, and those are silver certificates. Those are not US dollars. Those are the other things. the ones that are redeemable for silver, right? So some of them do say redeemable for silver on them, like the old ones did. So there's just some people out there thinking that's the case. But that kind of thing, conspiracy, and is it this, is it that? It has just about as much traction, just about as much persuasion ability as some of the fake news stories do, in the sense that you can kind of hallucinate and say, okay, maybe, right? I see it now. If you hallucinate. Now, look, it's just an Atlantic article. I'm not trying to defend the Atlantic. I'm not trying to defend anything like that. And I wouldn't assume Alex Soros is a good guy. I'm not trying to threaten Trump or anything like that. But the point is, the persuasion that people are saying, oh, it's murky, it's this and that, which is fine, is just as weak as the kind of persuasion we're seeing right now being deployed by the fake news machine, right? The fake news machine. And that's our theme today, right? That you can't really put the machine back together, that its ability to persuade, its ability to hypnotize people and to force them to hallucinate is weakening every single day. That's why it's becoming funny, right? You're seeing these impotent efforts to try to persuade people in ways that worked a little while ago, but that no longer work now. So you can see it, for example, this weekend we saw this Patriot Front thing, the Charlottesville hoax extension, right? The Charlottesville hoax, which worked the first time around. The Charlottesville hoax worked perfectly, right? The Charlottesville hoax being the people that were protesting that day with the tiki torches and all that stuff were probably paid, right? They were probably part of an op, probably a stage thing. Now, my theory about how this is done is that you do indeed take your normal racists, you get your FBI to go look for them, right? You get your FBI to go look for them. And there's a story about that today called the Newburgh Four, right? It's another one of these cases, just like the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping hoax, where just like we saw in Toronto with the Toronto 18, right? That was the same thing, where you get your investigators, your your secret CIA, CSIS in Canada, FBI, whatever, and you get them to look for your domestic terrorists and you find out where they are. The problem is most of the domestic terrorists are very low IQ. The Newburgh 4 case was another one of those ones where you had infiltration by the FBI. They met some low IQ people and convinced them to do a crime. The Toronto 18 story was more or less the same. The Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping thing was exactly that. It was so bad, the Gretchen Whitmer case, that one of the jurors, once they found out all the information, actually went to the homes of one of the people accused of wanting to kidnap and behead the governor of Michigan, and said, like, I'm sorry I fell for this. I'm sorry I did that. Now, the way I imagine the Patriot Front and the Charlottesville thing works is that you do indeed take, just one second. Pardon, team. It's a holiday here today where I am, so my wife is preparing a few things extraordinarily to go for a little visit. So, the case with the Charlottesville hoax, right? So what you do is you do get a couple real ones, right? You get a couple real ones, but then you mix in the persuading FBI types that are there. Maybe not FBI guys. We have Alex Jones talking about what it was today, right? Alex Jones is out there saying, likely, let me just see where the, did I not copy that one? Anyway, Alex Jones, yeah, here it is. Alex Jones saying 100% correct. This is in preparation for Charlottesville 2.0 on a massive scale. Many of the Fed Front organization members are just patsies in the making. The leadership are NGO operatives from groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Anti-Defamation League, who take direction from the FBI. So that's what he's saying here, right? So these guys walked around New York yesterday, but nobody buys it. And one of the tells you can get to by understanding that no one buys this is that the mainstream news, the fake news, doesn't even cover this, because I think they know, right? I think it's already happened a few times where when they, for example, arrest these people, they never take their masks off, right? Well, there's a reason why they don't take their masks off, right? But these things aren't working. Most people this weekend saw this thing and laughed. Imagine Trump supporters walking through a city with masks on, like COVID masks, or even like I'm embarrassed about my opinion masks, right? That doesn't happen. No, Trump supporters are embarrassed about their opinions. Could you imagine a Bitcoiner going around saying, I'm embarrassed about being a Bitcoiner? Well, Trumpers are very similar to Bitcoiners in that way, right? They're 100% in. They're all in. They're not embarrassed. And certainly not embarrassed to do what they're doing. Now, maybe they wouldn't go through a city like New York for fear of getting hit or beaten or anything like that. But what we saw with these masks and the glasses, they're not even showing their ears, right? So there's clearly an effort here to hide themselves. But the point is, it's not working, right? It's just like Alex Jones says, the FBI runs defense if anyone gets too close to the truth. This is not the only group, but given all the visibility ops they're running, look for this group to be at the center of key 2024 setups. I think good advice from Alex Jones. But again, what we have to remember is once we've seen this a few times, it becomes unpersuasive. It doesn't work anymore, right? The ability of it to persuade us just goes away. And if you take that case, or here's even what Politico is saying about Davos this week, right? Davos being, I think, I'm a little upset it's over because it was just such easy content, right? It made every gathering last week like as simple as you can imagine. Like, what did they say? What dumb shit did they say at Davos yesterday? And every day I looked for notes for about 10, 15 minutes and I had nothing but gold, right? Just gold, right? You can just bring it up and blah, blah, blah. But here's what even Politico is saying. They're writing today that why the Davos smart set sounds dumb. In a complex world, having original insights is harder than ever. So they're trying to say here it's just because the world is complicated and all that, but that's not true. Right? It's more that people are tuning them out because they've been wrong so many times that it's almost impossible now to take them seriously. One of the great examples of this has been trending around all morning. And it was an article in the New York Times that Paul Krugman wrote when the 2016 election was over. He wrote this on November 7th, right? November 7th, 2016, whatever, the day after Trump won, November 9th, or I forget what day he won. But here's what he predicts, right? The economic fallout. It really does now look like President Donald J. Trump and markets are plunging. When might we expect them to recover? Frankly, I find it hard to care much, even though this is my specialty. The disaster for America and the world has so many aspects that the economic ramifications are way down of my list of things to fear. Still, I guess people want an answer. If the question is when markets will recover, a first pass answer is never. They'll never recover, according to Paul Krugman. Under any circumstances, putting an irresponsible, ignorant man who takes his advice from all the wrong people in charge of the nation with the world's most important economy would be very bad news. But what makes it especially bad right now, however, is the fundamentally fragile state of the world it is in, 8 years after the great financial crisis. Oh, it's true that we've been adding jobs at a pretty good pace and are quite close to full employment, but we've been doing okay only thanks to extremely low interest rates. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but what if something bad happens and the economy needs a boost? The Fed and its counterparts abroad basically have very little room for further rate cuts, and therefore very little ability to respond to adverse events. Now comes the mother of all adverse effects, and what it brings with it is a regime that will be ignorant of economic policy and hostile to any effort it might make to work. Effective fiscal support for the Fed, not a chance. Not a chance. Paul Krugman. But this is the best they've got. This is literally the best they've got. Mike Benz says this is such a turbo bad take to write on November 9th, 2016, the day after the 2016 election, immediately after the economy hit all-time highs everywhere, then stayed there for 3 years straight. People give Kramer shit, but Krugman is the final boss of worst takes of all time. Remember, people like me, Bitcoiners like me, right? People like Mike Benz. Mike Benz rushed to DC to work for the State Department under Trump. I rushed to New York City to work in media to talk about all this stupid shit and help bring Bitcoin to New York City. I was there the minute Trump won. The minute he won, I was in New York City going on about Bitcoin. I used to laugh in 2017 by the time the summer came around about what life would look like in the summer of 2017 as Bitcoin is pumping, the world's going great. And I'm sitting there going, imagine Hillary won. Like, I wouldn't be in New York City. I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff, right? I was the opposite. I was like one of those, the Americans that kept saying, "Oh, if Trump wins, I'm moving to Canada." I said, if Trump wins, I'm moving to America. I'm leaving Canada instantly because I can't live around Trudeau. I'm going to see Trump, man. And it worked out great, right? All my kids were born in America. They're, born Bitcoiners at that time. And from then on, you can start to really see the ability of people who can make good predictions, persuade people, and the people who simply can't, they need things like Patriot Front. They need things like WEF. They need these things to persuade. They need things like January 6th, right? And if you don't have those things, the ability to project this kind of persuasion to steer people's minds just goes away. And when reality changes under your feet, you get rug pulled because these predictions you made become objectively falsifiable. You can see that they're fake. You can see that they were wrong. And if you don't answer for them, if you don't pay the price of being wrong, and you keep trying to sell people into the side that is always wrong, you're going to lose people every single time. And if you lose people every single time, eventually, right, like we've seen the economic concept of compound interest and the economic concepts of just economics. Economics allows you to predict things, right? That's kind of what economics do. If you can see the decisions people will make because of X, Y, or Z, you're able to predict things much, much better. Which is why, we've been predicting for a long time that the game over in Ukraine and Russia, for example, with that war, is really just a meat grinder, and whoever has the most meat to grind is going to win. And that's why we see today, and all the libtards are out there saying, "Oh, how can this be? Ukraine can't lose. We were told differently," right? There's an article today that has them all surprised. It's in the Sunday Times. So it was yesterday. Ukraine's average soldier is 43 years old, the newspaper says. How can they keep Putin at bay? Some volunteers who signed up at the beginning of the war with Russia are mentally and physically exhausted, and there is a lack of younger fighters to replace them. Now, everyone in Bitcoin knew this was going to happen. Everybody, anyone, forget about Bitcoin. Anyone could have told you that a country like Ukraine sacrificing all that life. I had some animals outside. So we knew this was happening. Everyone knew this was happening, right? Now it's a surprise to people who've been misled, but another one of these cases just causes more and more people to say, how could I have gotten this wrong, that wrong, so many things wrong? Now we're moving towards the election cycle, and yesterday one of the most amazing things happened, right? One of the most amazing things you'll ever see happened, which was they've been looking more into the voting machines in Georgia. And it turns out they brought a fellow yesterday, and a local reporter met with this guy named Halderman, who's a guy who works on these machines, right? Local reporter describes election expert Halderman breaking into Dominion voting tabulator and changing vote totals during his Georgia testimony. So he did this live, and this is what we see happen, right? So he comes in, Gateway Pundit had that headline. Rasmussen Reports has the headline of Haldeman. Haldeman, by the way, also not a Trump guy, right? So important to say. Tea leaves. Associated Press, New York Times, Washington Post are all writing their conspiracy theory, old news debunk stories right now targeting Professor Haldeman, who, by the way, is not a Republican. Expect comparisons to P.T. Barnum, Snake Oil, and Tinkerbell. Experts will say a lot of things, but none will be even close to his experience. So, indeed, the prediction here is that this guy is now going to get ad hominem attacks against his personality because he's triggering people too much, creating cognitive dissonance. And when you see cognitive dissonance in the wild, what you end up doing is seeing the person who is having cognitive dissonance attack personally the person who's causing it, right? That's usually a deflection. So you're going to see, and I believe that'll happen. So here's a prediction. You're going to see, I'm going to have fake news in the next couple of days about Haldeman and what he found out because of what he found out. Lara Logan says, how can we go into 2024 with the same systems in place? The jig is up, right? Everyone talking about it. Chuck Costello saying Alex Haldeman reportedly hacks Dominion voting tabulator in front of federal judge during election integrity bench trial. So I think we're going to see more and more of these stories. And again, why it's so important to make these predictions and say these things, because the people who predict poorly are the ones who are going to suffer for their bad predictions and their inability to persuade any longer, which is why you're starting to see CNN and all these people go full Hitler all the time. Why Trump is just like all Hitler all the time now. Oh, Hitler, 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 right? They literally have nothing left. They're at the end of their capacity to persuade people. They're at the end of all that. And in the end, the just like what's his name, Alex Soros said, oh, don't worry, right? Crime is gone. Crime is gone. It's so not gone, right? It's so not gone that you get things like what's happened in Oakland, which is, this is a true story, right? You're going to see fake news on this in the next couple of days. So this is a true story. The city of Oakland now invoices small business owners who have been burglarized. Okay. I'm not kidding. Snail bar owner Andreas. This is the definition of being kicked while you're down. This is the third time Snail Bar has been broken into. Oakland Council President Nikki Bass, after you declared the public safety of Oakland should be defunded by 50%, you can't start billing small business every time they are broken into. It's insulting and it's killing off jobs. So after that, In-N-Out Burger, In-N-Out, the famous American hamburger chain. If you guys who are not from America don't know what In-N-Out is, In-N-Out is a burger joint only available in California, I think Arizona, and a couple in Texas, one in Austin. They don't even come to the East Coast because they can't guarantee their supply chains. It's a little bit Christian as well. You'll see a lot of Christian Bible, written on the cups and on the French fry bag and stuff like that. So they've, people love it, right? In-N-Out Burger. It was the, if you remember the Big Lebowski, the movie The Big Lebowski, that's kind of what made In-N-Out in Colorado now, I'm hearing. So the, I've been, it's great. It's so cheap too. It's actually delicious, right? But if you remember in Big Lebowski, that was kind of like, oh, they don't mind going to the Big Lebowski's house because it's near an In-N-Out Burger, right? There's an In-N-Out over there, right? Remember when John Goodman, like, I know this cripple can walk, right? After they went to the In-N-Out Burger. So In-N-Out is gone. They're leaving Oakland. They're leaving it for this exact reason, right? It's things like this. It's the terrible bad takes, the terrible bad predictions, the terrible news that people followed that have left them in these vulnerable positions. And now they'll resent the people for lying to them, and they'll admire the people who avoided this trouble, right? So you've got Balaji, who called this phenomena anarcho-tyranny, right? That this is what's happening. Anarcho-tyranny is setting in a place like this. Imagine getting a bill for getting robbed. And imagine. So if you take what's going on with the Patriot Front, if you take what's going on with the predictions on the economy, if you take what's going on with the media, just having to call Trump Hitler all day long, all the time, one of the most amazing results, and we saw a lot of people talk about this weekend, End Wokeness tweeted it, Bowtied Ranger talked about it as well, and that has to do with the recruiting in the U.S. Army. It's just apparently at its all-time lowest. The U.S. Army right now has its smallest military force in 80 years, with the largest drop coming from white recruits. So white men not joining up. In 2018, not long ago, right? Really not long ago, they had 44,000 new white recruits. In 2023, it's just 25,000. So it's almost halved in not a long time, right? Not a long time, 6 years, right? Or 5 years. Bowtied Ranger said it best, though. And I think this is the important part. And this just shows how close we are to either total collapse in America, total collapse, which I doubt, or completely destroying the country that we knew and creating something else, right? Here's what we got. More people need to understand that it's not just the fact that white recruits aren't joining, but that within this demographic is a special multi-generational family cohort that is no longer telling their children to join. This cohort has been the backbone of military recruiting since the beginning of this country, and the overwhelming majority of these families are done with the military. The consequences of this phenomena have yet to be fully appreciated. It'll take decades, generations to fully recover from this issue, assuming military messaging ever takes a 180-degree turn. So that's one prediction, and I think it's sort of accurate, right? I don't think these people are coming back. I think that it really has completely changed, right? The American character around this issue, especially with the military. It's no longer this thing where you're patriotic and you'll do whatever you want, and then you're seen as smart and noble, right? That's gone. If you look at this Jack Reacher show that's become quite well, I've read some of the books before. I saw it first when Tom Cruise made the stories. Jack Reacher, he plays like a military police officer who becomes sort of a wandering nomad in America looking for American freedom and this and that. And he's not a consumer and he doesn't really care about money. But what you see is a corrupt military for the most part in these stories, and this one sort of lone wolf person going against that. So I think he's in many ways a sign of the times of what's coming, and sort of the last vestige of nobility within the U.S. military in a sense. So now I'm a fan of many of the people who serve in the U.S. military and totally appreciate what it means and all of that stuff. However, the amount of lying that we've been subjected to for generations now means that something's got to change and will change. And you can already see it. All these people leaving, you got to go back to the mindset of who came to America in the first place, right? Who were these people? Who were the pilgrims? They were people that said, I'm getting the fuck out of England. And maybe they thought about staying and changing things there for a while. But at a certain point, they thought it was better to come to Plymouth Rock in New England and suffer New England weather. They thought that was better, right, than staying over there in the United Kingdom or whatever it was called at the time, England. I guess it wasn't the UK yet. So all of these people were ready to abandon everything and come here. You don't think they'll do that again? You don't think that the people who are descendants of those people will simply do that again when they've had enough? When they've had enough, of course they will. The whole country of America is founded by people who said, get the fuck out of here. I'm willing to leave. I'm willing to leave this place to start something new. The whole country is that. Everyone in America comes from someone who said, this sucks. I'm out of here. And we're willing to leave. The whole country, everyone in the country comes from someone who has that in their background. So you don't think we'll do it again? Of course, right? Of course. And it doesn't mean go to a physically different place. At this point, what we understand is that the country, well, Dean asked to where. So this is what I mean. I don't think you have to go anywhere, right? I think these are that what we're actually creating here is something more similar to what the Jews, the wandering Jews created, right? They created using the Bible and literacy without any Israel or anything like that, right? They created an empire of the mind, like an actual empire, a psychological empire. And they created a people that didn't need territory. They lived everywhere. They didn't have to even move, right? Now, when you start decoupling money and state, you create a situation where this becomes possible, because right now you're in America whenever you're in America because of the US dollar, right? It's one of the things that strings the federal government together, that creates this unity within an hegemony within the continental United States, well, all the world in the end, right? But that is what is ending. When you see things like this, right? This is Missouri. This is the state of Missouri who's suing the Joe Biden thing at the Supreme Court right now. That's the state of Missouri versus Joe Biden. That's this whole censorship thing, getting governments to do the Obama game plan, which was hire a bunch of NGOs, create a bunch of cutouts, hire them to do the censorship, and create a business model around censorship that removes the federal government from having to act on its own. They just contract people to do it, which is what we saw with COVID, the social media platforms and all that. So you don't, now, Dean, people can move to anywhere, Americans, they're doing it already, right? I'm not a full resident of the United States for that reason, right? I don't want to pay for this shit. So a lot of people are already moving around, but you can go within individual US states themselves. Here's what Missouri is doing, right? Missouri officials refuse to work with the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, saying all federal so-called gun laws are unconstitutional, right? You're going to get a lot more of this. You're going to get Texas continuing to control its own borders, to understand its own sovereignty, right? Free America is absolutely an idea, right? It's an idea, and it can be anywhere. It can be anywhere. And Bitcoin actually frees America to stay in America, frees Americans to stay in America. Because you can protest against the government now. You don't have to go and move to fucking China and hold yuan in order to protest against America. You don't have to move to Mexico. You don't have to move to Canada. If you just move to Texas now, of course, with the U.S. dollar being what it is still to this day, you're not really out of the system totally. But if you're living in Texas and you're not saving in dollars and you're not paying taxes anymore because you're in Texas right now, I understand this federal tax. There's always ways out, right? LLCs, and you got to be clever against these people for sure. It's not that easy, but nevertheless, if you put your mind to it, you can stay in America and actually leave what we think of as the machine, right? The machine. Because with the voting machines now, right, with the voting machines, with that being exposed, who can put this narrative back together? Who is persuasive enough? Is it Paul Krugman, right? Nope. Now, I'm not saying there won't be another COVID type mass event. We're seeing in Europe right now, they're warning everyone in Europe that Putin is about to invade, get water, all this stuff. I can't imagine there's not going to be something else super crazy that comes to America to influence how we go into the elections in 2024. It could be violence. It could be something, right? And hold yuan. Didn't I say move to China and hold yuan? Didn't I say China? I don't remember what I said. So that's why, what Boris Johnson said this week about Davos, right? That the elite there are trembling violently at the return of Trump, because Trump's main ability is actually this: it's persuasion. He's the best. There's no one like him. And I said it. I believe you, Johnny. What I meant was move to China and hold yuan, right? Yuan. But I get why you'd say that. Funny. And indeed, the more and more we see that it's impossible to align the U.S. dollar with American principles of freedom of speech and these kinds of things, and even the rules-based system we have in America. Kathy Wood was tweeting about that this morning, about this intrinsic value argument around Bitcoin, and how it can actually create this situation where we have separation of money and state, and how America can lead in that. So what she said was this: if you guys know what the Laffer curve is, right? The Laffer curve is this thing where if you tax someone too much, they'll leave, right? So why, I don't know if you guys understand this, but why there's so much emphasis right now in Ireland around censorship, right? It's because most American head offices, based on the 2008 meltdown, moved their head office to Ireland because of the Laffer curve. Ireland has zero corporate tax rate, right? So Coinbase is actually headquartered in Ireland. A lot of big companies, whether you knew that or not, Apple, I think, is in Ireland. Most American companies, this is one of the things that Trump was talking about in 2016, all the offshoring, repatriating the American money to America. They went abroad because places like Ireland understood the Laffer curve. Do you know that Ireland is the second largest headquarters of hedge funds in the world? Basically, all of European banking runs through Ireland. Now, the people aren't really there, right? What they're doing there is keeping the corporate head office there. They have to keep some nominal amount of people. But the point was, Ireland understood very quickly and early that lower taxes mean more taxes, right? If your goal is just to amass a bunch of money, there's an optimal rate at which you as the government get the most amount. It's not by increasing taxes. It's not that, right? There's a low rate that gives you more money because more people are willing to pay it. So higher tax rates reduce tax collection past a certain point, right? They disincentivize industry and all that. So what Kathy Wood said today was that Arthur Laffer, the Laffer curve guy who invented this economic principle, is a monetary scholar and believes that Bitcoin, the return to private rules-based money, could become the most positive step forward in global monetary history. So Laffer actually believes these reasons. And he believes them for the exact reason that I'm saying to you, right? You can leave New York, California. There's a reason why Missouri is ignoring the federal government. There's a reason why Texas is ignoring the federal government. This is going to continue. It's not going to stop. The brilliance of American federal design allows for this flexibility and dexterity so that you can do things like this, so that you can actually fight back in this way. And, there's another one I have here from, and not only that, right? We see the military, right? We see the military families leaving, and you can go somewhere else for sure. American military not being attracted, not being persuaded to come. But all of that also is within the context of what we're seeing with these new, let me get the actual story here, with these new drones, right? So the Palmer Luckey things, we're talking about the Houthis piece here. And this is what Muslim Bitcoiner was saying. This is from Politico itself today, right? So just remember, Trump, number one persuader in the world, right? Now, violence can be persuasive, right? You have the best military, people are going to listen to you, right? That's for sure. No doubt about that. But what if all of that changes, right? Well, here's a political story. A $2 million missile versus a $2,000 drone. Pentagon worried over cost of Houthi attacks. That quickly becomes a problem because the most benefit is in their favor, one expert said, right? So you've also got Balaji talking about this, saying this is disruptive innovation in the literal Clayton Christensen sense applied to the military. A low-cost insurgent beats a high-cost incumbent was obviously going to happen, as John Robb has been saying forever. But the implications are for global order are disturbing, right? Well, we know that, but what have I promised? What have I promised, breakup people? What have I promised you? Now, I don't want this to happen, but I've promised you it will. It will happen before Bitcoin actually creates the leverage to separate money and state, which is you're going to see, I've said it many, many times, you are going to see a beautiful US aircraft carrier melt into the sea. You're going to see it. And with it, you're going to see the entire World War II order of things go down with it. And no amount of Joy Reid wearing a Donald Trump wig is ever going to be able to persuade you that what you saw wasn't an actual changing of the guard, a changing of the way the world is run, and a changing of the power structures around. There's nothing that's going to change that. The visual and the visceral feeling that people are having today that know that the Atlantic article that Alex Soros shared is a complete bullshit, right? People understand you can't, just like people bring up that 1984 thing, right? You can't believe your eyes and your ears. That's the number one directive. It works on some people. It does. But every day they lose another and another and another and another and another. And we're shooting back, right? It's not just like in 1984 when you couldn't shoot back. We're shooting back great. And we've got people like Elon who are shooting back. We've got people like Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, Donald Trump. More and more of these people are fighting back. And when they do, they destroy the machine, just like the voting machines. That story's not going to be put back in the tube. No one has any thought of credibility in the next 2024 election, right? So all the different levers that were used, all the different mythology that was used in order to get people to be persuaded that the US dollar scam system was for the best for everyone. While it worked in the 1950s, it worked less and less every decade since. And at this point, it's done. It doesn't have any persuasive ability anymore. It can only persuade people who are so invested in the current system that need their degree to make money or something like that, that will continue to help perpetuate it. Other than that, if you're a soldier, if you're, anyone else, you're done. You're done with the system. So the good news is we're killing it. We're winning. We're winning. Many do believe nonsense. Yeah. Truth heals. It seems like Vivek's vice presidential race has been an absolute success. I bet he was shooting for the VP spot from the VP spot from the start. Maybe. Hey, CK, what's up, my man? Nice to see you. So yeah, here in this case, so it looks more and more like my prediction is right on. I've been telling you for a long time he was going to be the vice president. We found out from Glenn Beck this weekend that Trump called Glenn Beck to talk to him about VP, and Glenn Beck related a really interesting story. So Trump asked him, who do you think I should pick? Glenn says, I think Vivek. And he goes, everyone's saying that. Everybody's saying that. Why do you think it? So he said, why do you think it? And then Glenn told him, well, because he can cover your back and he's as good at persuading the media as you. I'll continue to do my one extra thought on that. He is as talented, no kidding, as Trump, but doesn't come with the cost of Trump, which means he doesn't create the cognitive dissonance and Trump derangement syndrome. So he's really good at not creating that. So again, it's what I've been saying for a while, that the dumbest thing is what's going to happen next as far as the mainstream media banning Trump, right? They should never have banned him because he's toxic on their networks. He's revolting to them. Doesn't matter what he says. He revolts them, right? The brainwashing is so thick on Trump. It's hard to break. But Vivek doesn't have that, and he doesn't create the Trump derangement syndrome, and he actually can persuade in real time in one of these shows. So they probably, be careful what you wish for. They banned him from the mainstream shows. They get Vivek instead because he's the vice president, and they won't be able to say no. You can't ban both people, right? Well, they can try, but it's not going to work. Good show today. Thanks, my man. Thanks, my man. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government. That's a brilliant Ron Paul quote right there. All right, let me see what they're saying on Rumble. I hope Rumble worked. I forgot to check it. Sometimes I don't check it quick enough. But let's see what they're saying over on Rumble. See what they're saying. I'm live. Ooh, big audience over there on Rumble. We like the big audience. Good morning, Sluggo123. French Fry. Good morning from Florida. King Mansa Musa has some friends there. Good. Hello, Don Bali. Matthew RL. Morning. Gulting. Top of the morning. Indeed. I am here in Erie, Pennsylvania. Love Bitcoin. VHC, I used to watch Erie, Indiana, an old show. So I always think of Erie, Pennsylvania when I see it on the map, or Erie, Indiana when I see Erie, Pennsylvania on the map. Sharia Bitcoin is under Trump an authoritative rule too? No, I mean, Sharia, I'm a pretty big believer that Trump is a bit of a laissez-faire person, I would say. Again, a beautiful day, Lance. I think most of the Trump similarities to fascist leaders is literally just the charisma. That's it. There's no like philosophy in his mind that would be authoritative. I don't think any. I've never heard him say anything, and I've watched a lot of his interviews. So maybe I'm not understanding your question correctly, but would Trump run an authoritative government? I don't think so. I mean, for example, his entire immigration plan, the entire immigration plan was always just the Canadian immigration plan. He wants points. He wants like people who come to America to have some kind of measuring system so that we can get who we want, right? I think that's what he's saying. I don't think he was ever like, look, as a Canadian, when he said shithole countries, I'll tell you what I thought. I thought he said he didn't want more Canadians. All right. That's what I thought. But that's just me, right? All right. Okay, team. Trump Ramaswamy, we love it. Robert, thanks, Nolan. Thanks a lot, dude. All right, guys. That's all I got for today. I hope you have a great day. It's a holiday here where I am. I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably head down to the beach later. I'll see y'all tomorrow, though. Peace.